Chapter 1. My husband died in a car accident, but when I found the hidden property he never told me about, filled with women he claimed didn't exist, his family said I was paranoid and losing my mind until I uncovered the money trail he'd been hiding for years. And the moment federal investigators started looking into it, everything escalated fast. Because at 6:42 a.m., the property was surrounded, evidence pulled, and the man who threatened me ended up in custody, facing charges that would keep him there for years. And that's when I realized I wasn't the victim in his story anymore. I was the one who turned his secrets into the weapon that destroyed him. I'm Ilara, and this is how I took everything back. My husband died in a car crash, and somehow I was the only one who thought it wasn't an accident. The call came at 4:18 in the afternoon while I was staring at a spreadsheet that refused to balance. $213 off, and I had been chasing it for hours. When my phone rang, I almost ignored it. I wish I had. The voice on the other end was calm, practiced, almost detached. Single vehicle crash, Ridge Hollow Road, outside Silver Bend. Driver deceased at the scene. No hesitation, no questions, no real details, just a conclusion. Carter Wynn was 48 years old when he died, my husband of 15 years, a man who tracked every expense, every mile, every risk in his life. Men like that do not just lose control of a car. I said thank you before I realized how wrong that sounded. Then the line went dead, and I sat there in the quiet, staring at numbers that no longer mattered. Something about it didn't sit right. Not the accident, not the way it was handled, not the way everyone seemed ready to accept it. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift inside me. Not grief, not yet. Something sharper. Doubt. Carter and I had what people would call a stable marriage. Quiet, predictable. We both worked in finance. He was a senior accountant at Westline Freight, a regional logistics company. I managed books for a medical supplier in Portland. We had routines that never changed. Dinner at 7, television by 8, silence by 10. We did not fight. We did not talk much either. Looking back, I realize now that silence was not peace. It was distance that had gone unnoticed for too long. 3 days after the funeral, after the flowers and the casseroles, and the careful sympathy of people who did not really know us, I found myself sitting across from Daniel Price, Carter's attorney. He went through everything methodically: accounts, insurance, the condo in Portland. It was exactly what I expected from Carter: organized, clean, controlled. Then he paused. "There is one more asset," he said. He slid a small set of keys across the desk. "A property outside Silver Bend, about 2.5 hours south. It was in Carter's name only." Only. The word echoed in my head. I had handled every dollar in our marriage, every bill, every statement, every tax return. I knew where everything was supposed to be, and yet this had never shown up. I had no idea he even owned land. I looked at the keys, then back at Mr. Price. Why didn't I know about this? He hesitated just long enough to make me uneasy. "You might want to see it before making any decisions," he said. That was all. No explanation, no context. Just another piece of a life I was starting to realize I did not fully understand. The farm was not entirely new to me. It was something Carter had mentioned once, early in our marriage, just enough for me to know it existed, and just enough for him to make it clear I was never supposed to go there. I remember the only time I asked about it. His reaction had been immediate. "Do not go there, Ilara." Not angry, not loud. Final. I had never pushed. That was how we worked. He drew lines, I stayed inside them. Until now. The drive out of Portland felt longer than it should have. The city faded behind me, replaced by open roads, then trees, then long stretches where the signal dropped and the world seemed to narrow. About 20 minutes before I reached the property, I noticed a dark pickup truck in my rearview mirror. It stayed there through one turn, then another. When I slowed slightly, it did not pass. It just kept its distance, far enough to feel accidental, close enough to feel wrong. I told myself I was imagining things. By the time I turned onto the gravel driveway, it was gone. Or at least I could not see it anymore. The property stretched out in front of me, 25 acres of land that looked maintained. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. The grass was trimmed, the fences were intact, the farmhouse stood solid, worn but cared for. 2 barns set off to the side, one clearly newer than the other. This was not an abandoned place. Someone had been here, recently. I parked near the front steps and turned off the engine. The silence settled in immediately. Not empty, just present. I sat there for a moment, keys in my hand, feeling something I could not quite name. If he lied about this, what else did he lie about? I stepped out of the car. The air smelled clean, pine, dust, and something faintly warm, like a house that had been lived in not long ago. I unlocked the front door. It opened without resistance, too easily. I stepped inside and stopped. This was not a storage property. This was a home. 3 sofas arranged around a low table, a blanket draped over one armrest, a glass of water sitting half full, like someone had just left the room. I moved forward slowly, every step tightening something in my chest. A sweater hung over the back of a chair. Soft fabric, not mine. Near the door, a pair of sneakers. Small, child-sized, pink laces. My throat tightened. Carter and I did not have children. We had never built a life that included them. So why were there signs of one here? I walked toward the wall. Drawings. Dozens of them. Crayon and marker on mismatched paper. Houses, stick figures, smiling faces under bright suns. Families. My eyes moved to the mantel. Photographs. So many photographs. Young women, teenage girls, children. Faces I had never seen. Lives I had never been part of. Not a single picture included me. Not one. I stared at them, feeling something cold settle deep in my stomach. Who were these people? And why did my husband have their lives on his walls? A sound broke the silence. A creak. Soft but unmistakable. From upstairs. I froze. Another sound followed. A step. Then the quiet click of a door. Someone was up there. I reached for my phone. "Hello?" I called, forcing my voice straight. "I know someone is here." No answer. I moved toward the staircase. "If you don't come down, I'm calling the police." Still nothing. I placed my foot on the first step, then the second. Halfway up, I heard it. "Please." The voice was soft, shaking. "Please don't call them." I stopped. A girl appeared at the top of the stairs. 17 maybe, thin, pale. Her blonde hair hung in uneven strands around her face. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying for hours. She held onto the railing like it was the only thing keeping her standing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she did. "He said we would be safe here." The word hit harder than anything I had seen in that house. Safe. I stared at her, my mind trying to catch up to something that no longer fit inside the life I thought I understood. "Who told you that?" I asked. She swallowed. "Your husband." And in that moment, standing on that staircase with a stranger who looked more afraid of the world than I had ever been, I realized something I could not ignore anymore. I had spent 15 years trusting a man I never really knew. Chapter 2. The words hit harder than anything else I had seen in that house. Safe. I stayed where I was on the staircase, my hands still wrapped around the railing, trying to keep my voice steady even as everything inside me shifted. "Who told you that?" I asked. The girl swallowed, her eyes flicking past me like she was expecting someone to appear behind my back. "Your husband." For a moment, I didn't move. Then I climbed the rest of the stairs. Slowly, carefully. Every step felt like I was walking deeper into a life that had never included me. I stopped a few feet away from her. "What's your name?" "Claire," she said. Her voice was small, but it held. I nodded once. "I'm Alara. This is my house now." She flinched slightly at that, like the word house meant something different to her than it did to me. A second woman stepped out from the hallway behind her. She was older, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair pulled back tight, posture straight, eyes sharp in a way that told me she didn't trust easily. "Who are you?" she asked. "Ilara Voss. My husband owned this property." Owned. Past tense. He died 3 weeks ago. Something changed in her expression, but it wasn't shock. It was calculation. "He never said he was married." The sentence landed like a clean slap. I felt it all the way down to my stomach. Not anger yet, not even pain, just something cold and precise. 15 years. I had spent 15 years building a life with a man who apparently never thought to mention me here, not once. I forced myself to breathe. "Start from the beginning," I said. "Why are you here?" The woman hesitated, then stepped closer to Claire without taking her eyes off me. "My name is Helena Ruiz. I've been staying here for about 3 years." 3 years. I almost laughed. 3 years, and I had never seen a single charge, a single withdrawal, a single trace of this in our accounts. That wasn't possible. Unless... I felt something tighten in my chest. Claire spoke next. "He found me at a bus station near Eugene. I didn't have anywhere else to go." Her hands twisted together. "I ran away. From my stepfather." I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't have to. "He heard me," she said. Flat, practiced, like she had said it before and learned not to let it show. Helena's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "He helped her," Helena said. "He helped all of us." All of us. I looked past them, down the hallway, at the closed doors. How many people have been here? Helena didn't answer right away. Enough that we needed a system. A system. The word echoed. This wasn't random. This wasn't one act of kindness. This was something Carter had built and hidden. From me. I felt the anger shift, deepen. I handled every dollar in our marriage, every bill, every account, every tax return, and somehow this never showed up. I let out a slow breath. "So where did the money come from?" Helena hesitated. "He said it was his." I almost smiled at that. There was no his, not after 15 years. That wasn't just his money, that was ours. And somehow I had been the only one kept out of the truth. My phone buzzed in my hand, sharp and sudden. I glanced down. Ryan, Carter's younger brother. I answered. "Where are you?" he asked immediately. "At the property." "You shouldn't be there." "Why?" A pause. "Because we've been looking into things. Mom wants to sell it fast, and there are questions about how Carter was moving money." My grip tightened. "What kind of questions?" "Small transfers, spread out. Nothing obvious, but it adds up. If there's something illegal tied to that place, we don't want it coming back on us." Illegal. I looked at Helena, at Claire, at the drawings on the walls, at the life that had existed here without me. I built our life, every dollar, every decision, and somehow I was the only one left out of the truth? A flicker of movement outside caught Helena's attention. She went still. "There's a car." Claire's entire body tensed. "No," she whispered. Helena grabbed her arm. "Back room, now." They moved quickly, disappearing down the hallway. I stood alone at the top of the stairs, my pulse rising. For a second, I considered leaving, getting in my car, driving away, pretending none of this existed. But then I thought about the truck that followed me, about the phone call, about the fact that Carter might not have died by accident, and something inside me shifted. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about leaving. I was thinking about staying. I walked downstairs. The sound of tires on gravel was louder now, slower, deliberate. I reached the front door and opened it. The same dark pickup sat in front of the house. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad, controlled. He looked at me like he had been expecting me. "Can I help you?" I asked. His eyes flicked past me toward the house, then back again. "I'm looking for someone." His voice was calm, too calm. "A girl, 17, blonde." I shook my head. "You've got the wrong place." He took a step forward. "I don't think I do." Something in my chest tightened, but I didn't move. "You can't come in." He smiled slightly. "I've been here before." The words landed heavier than they should have. Before I could respond, he took another step. I lifted my phone. "You take one more step, I call the sheriff." We stood there, the distance between us thin and charged. He studied me for a long second. Then he laughed. Soft, cold. "You know what I've learned?" I didn't answer. "People who lie to me usually regret it." He leaned just enough for his voice to drop. "Accidents happen all the time. Like they did to your husband." This time I felt it. Not confusion, not doubt. Fear. Real, sharp, undeniable. Then he straightened. "Next time, I won't be this polite." He turned and walked back to his truck. I watched him drive away, the sound of gravel fading into silence. Only then did I realize my hands were shaking. But it wasn't the kind of fear that makes you run. It was the kind that makes you stay. I closed the door slowly and leaned against it. Upstairs, I could hear movement, quiet, careful. People trying not to be found. This wasn't just a secret anymore. It wasn't just a part of Carter's life I didn't understand. It was something dangerous. And somehow, I was already too deep inside it to walk away. Chapter 3. The silence that followed the shattered glass didn't feel like silence anymore. It felt like something waiting. I stood in the middle of the room, staring at the broken window, trying to slow my breathing, but my mind was already racing ahead of me. "This wasn't random," I said, more to myself than to anyone else. Helena stepped closer, her voice low. "No, it wasn't." Claire hovered near the stairs, her arms wrapped tight around herself. "He knows," she whispered. I turned to look at her. "Yes," I said, "but the question is, how long?" I forced myself to move, pulling my attention away from the window. "We need to see what Carter left behind," I said. "Everything." Helena nodded once. "The office." I walked back upstairs, each step heavier than before. The house didn't feel like a refuge anymore. It felt exposed. I pushed open the office door and stepped inside, scanning the room with a different kind of focus now. This wasn't just a place he worked. This was where he hid things. "Did you ever come in here?" I asked. "No," Helena said. "He kept it locked most of the time." Of course he did. I moved to the desk, opening drawers one by one, faster this time. Paperwork, lists, names. Not random names. Profiles, situations, risk levels. My fingers tightened around the edge of the drawer. "He wasn't just helping them," I said. "He was tracking everything." Helena stepped closer. "He needed to keep them safe." Safe. That word again. I pulled another file, another story, another life. All of them hidden from me. All of them funded somehow without a trace. I exhaled slowly. "All this time, I thought he was hiding something from me," I said. "I never imagined he was hiding something for someone else." The realization didn't soften anything. It made it worse, because it meant he had chosen not to trust me with the truth. I closed the drawer and noticed the seam at the bottom. False panel. I pressed it down. It lifted. Underneath was a leather notebook. I picked it up carefully. "This is it," I said. I opened it. The handwriting was familiar, precise, controlled. The first entry I read made my stomach drop. It had been 12 years since Patricia died. "Who's Patricia?" Helena asked. "His sister," I said, already reading ahead. The words blurred for a moment, then sharpened into something I couldn't ignore. She had tried to leave. He helped her, and the man found her. He pushed her down the stairs. They called it an accident. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't new. This wasn't something Carter stumbled into. This was something he had failed to stop once and never forgave himself for. I turned the page. I couldn't save her. I won't fail again. The next entries came faster. Names, dates, locations, women who needed to disappear, women who needed protection. He built this place for them, not for himself, not to hide, but to fix something he couldn't undo. I flipped to the last pages. The handwriting changed, less controlled, tighter. "There's someone watching the property. Photos left at the door. Time-stamped." My pulse quickened. Another entry. "If anything happens, Ilara needs to know." The date. The day before he died. I closed the notebook slowly. "He knew," I said. Helena frowned. "Knew what?" "He knew that someone found this place, that someone was watching." Claire stepped closer to the doorway. "He would have told us if it was safe." I looked at her. He didn't. The room felt smaller now, more dangerous. I went back to the drawer and searched deeper. At the back, I found a stack of photographs. I pulled them out. Every single one taken from a distance. The house, the driveway, the barns. Angles that made it clear someone had been watching for a long time. I flipped one over. Date, time, exact, calculated. "This wasn't random," I said again. Helena's voice was tight. "No." I reached into the drawer again and found a card. Logan Price, private investigator. Claire's voice dropped. "Derek has money. He hires people." I looked at the photos again, at the angles, at the timing. I looked at the photos again, at the angles, at the timing. I looked at the photos again, at the angles, at the timing. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Private investigators don't just watch, they report. The implications settled heavily. Derek didn't just find this place, he knew it before Carter died. My chest tightened. This wasn't just tracking, this was preparation. Before either of them could respond, a loud crack exploded through the house. Claire screamed before I even understood what I was hearing. Glass shattered downstairs. The sound tore through the air. I ran, down the hallway, down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. I reached the living room and stopped. The front window was gone, shattered, cold air pouring in, and on the floor, just inside the broken glass, a brick wrapped in paper. Helena and Claire stopped behind me. "Don't touch it," Helena said. I crouched anyway. Careful, slow. I unwrapped it. The message was written in thick black ink. "Stop hiding what doesn't belong to you." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a threat. This was a message. He knew they were here. He knew what this place was. And now, he knew I was here too. I stood up slowly, my eyes moving toward the broken window. The driveway was empty. No truck, no movement, nothing. That was worse, because it meant he didn't need to stay. He had already made his point. I reached for my phone. This time, my hand was steady. I dialed. 911? What is your emergency? My name is Ilara Wynn. Someone just broke my window, and I think the man who did it is connected to my husband's death. The words felt heavier than anything I had said so far. Real. Final. I ended the call and lowered the phone. The house felt different now. Not hidden, not safe. Exposed. I looked at the broken glass, at the note in my hand, at the staircase behind me where two people were trying to stay invisible, and something settled inside me. Cold. Clear. And for the first time, I understood the truth I had been avoiding. This wasn't about uncovering what Carter had been hiding. It was about surviving what he tried to protect. Chapter 4. The moment I ended that call, everything started moving faster than I expected. Deputy Marissa Torres arrived just before sunset, her patrol car rolling up the gravel driveway with a calm that didn't match the tension inside the house. I stepped outside to meet her before she reached the door. "You're Ilara Wynn," she said. "Yes." Her eyes moved past me, taking in the broken window, the patched glass, the tension that still lingered in the air. "Anyone hurt?" "No." "Good. Walk me through it." We sat inside, the late light stretching across the floor, the house quieter now, but not calm. Helena stayed close to Claire, her hand resting gently on the girl's shoulder. I told Torres everything. The accident, the hidden property, the files, the notebook, the photographs, Derek. She listened without interrupting, her expression steady, focused. When I finished, she turned to Claire. "What's your name?" Claire hesitated, her fingers tightening against her sleeve. Helena leaned closer. "It's okay," she whispered. Claire swallowed. "Claire Hale." Torres nodded once. "And Derek Hale is your stepfather." Claire nodded again. "He's hurt you before." A long pause. Then Claire whispered, "Yes." Torres leaned back slightly, her gaze sharpening. "He has a record," she said. "Assault, domestic violence. He's on parole right now." Helena's grip tightened. "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means if he shows up again, if he threatens her, if he tries to make contact, he's already breaking the law." A shift. Subtle, but real. For the first time I stepped into that house, he wasn't the only one in control anymore. "Then why is he still out there?" I said. "Because I need this on record," Torres replied. "I need her statement." Claire shook her head immediately. "No, if I say anything, he'll come back." Torres leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "He's already coming back." Silence filled the room. Claire looked at Helena, then at me, then at the broken window. "What if he kills someone?" she whispered. Torres didn't hesitate. "That's exactly what we're trying to stop." The weight of that settled in slowly. Then Claire nodded. "I'll do it." The next hour moved quickly. Torres took her statement, every detail recorded, every word placed exactly where it needed to be. By the time she stood to leave, the sky outside had darkened. "I'm filing this as a violation," she said at the door. "But understand something. This doesn't end tonight." "I know," I said. She studied me for a moment, then nodded and stepped outside. The house felt different after she left. Still tense, but no longer frozen. Something had shifted. For the first time, we were pushing back. The waiting was the hardest part. Every sound outside made Claire flinch. Every passing car pulled my attention to the window. And every night, I lay awake thinking about the same thing. He found this place before Carter died. 3 days later, Torres called. "We picked him up," she said. Just like that. No build-up, no warning. Violation of parole, threats, attempted contact. I sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. And he's staying in? For now. For now, it wasn't over. But it was enough. A week later, it was confirmed. Derek Hale was in custody. For the first time I stepped onto that property, he wasn't the one deciding what happened next. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt something colder, more focused, because none of that changed the one thing that mattered. Carter was still dead. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Dr. Ethan Cole. I looked at the car, he said. My chest tightened. And? A pause. The brake line didn't fail, it was cut. Everything inside me went still. Are you sure? I've seen enough to know it wasn't an accident. I closed my eyes for a moment. And the more I look at it, it's hard to believe that's a coincidence. When the call ended, I didn't move. This wasn't just about Claire anymore. This wasn't just about the house. Someone had been watching, planning, and Carter had found out. And then he died. The next problem came fast. A letter from First Pacific Bank. Final notice. The property still carried a loan, $180,000. 60 days. After that, they take it. I set the paper down slowly. Helena watched me. What is it? The bank wants the house, I said. If I don't pay, we lose it. Her face tightened. We can't leave. I know. My phone buzzed again. Ryan. Tell me you're selling it. No. A pause. You don't understand what you're getting into. No, I said quietly. You don't. The line deaded. I looked around the room, at the patched window, at the drawings, at Claire, at Helena. I could walk away, sell it, pretend none of this existed, or I could stay and take back control of something Carter had never let me see. This isn't just about protecting them anymore, I said slowly. It's about taking back everything he thought he controlled. Helena stared at me. What are we doing? We're making this legal. The next few weeks moved fast. Daniel Price helped file the paperwork, nonprofit status, structure, protection. Lily Grant came in and walked the property. This can work, she said, but it has to be done right. It will be, I said. Once it was legal, he couldn't touch it without consequences. Helena stepped into place without hesitation, organizing, running operations, keeping everything moving. We converted one of the barns, added cameras, lighting, security, not to hide, to stand. The place changed, not fragile anymore, not temporary, something stronger, something real. I stood in the doorway one evening watching Claire laugh quietly for the first time since I met her. For the first time, I understood what Carter had been building. Not a secret, a system, a shield, something he thought I couldn't carry. But he was wrong, because now it was mine, and I wasn't going anywhere. But something in the back of my mind wouldn't settle, because no matter how much we built, no matter how strong it became, one thing still didn't make sense, and something told me this still wasn't over. Chapter 5. The feeling stayed with me longer than I expected. Not sharp, not overwhelming, just steady, like something that had finally settled into place after months of being pulled in every direction. 6 months changed everything. The property no longer felt like something hidden. It didn't feel temporary anymore. It had structure, purpose, and people who depended on it every single day. There were 7 women living there full-time, 3 kids who ran across the yard without stopping to check who might be watching. Claire went back to school. At first, she barely spoke, barely looked up from the ground when someone addressed her. Now she laughed sometimes, not often, but enough that it felt real. Helena became the one who kept everything moving. She organized schedules, handled new arrivals, made sure no one slipped through the cracks. Natalie won custody of her daughter 2 months in. I still remember the way her hands shook when she held the court papers in the kitchen. "He can't touch her anymore," she said. And this time, it was true. Because this place wasn't just a house anymore. It was protected, legal, documented. Every step we took made it harder for anyone to tear it down. Derek Hale was no longer just in custody. The investigation into his finances opened doors no one had expected. Contracts that didn't hold up, money that didn't match, accounts that didn't make sense. Charges followed. serious ones, the kind that don't disappear with time. He wasn't just locked up, he was facing years. The same man who once stood on that porch and tried to intimidate me couldn't even access his own assets anymore. His accounts were frozen. His company was collapsing under the weight of everything that had been hidden. Power doesn't vanish overnight, but when it breaks, it doesn't come back the same way. I didn't celebrate when I heard the news. I just stood there and let it settle, because the part that mattered most still wasn't finished. Carter. The investigation stayed open. Weeks passed without answers. Then one morning, Deputy Torres called again. "We found enough to move forward," she said. My chest tightened. "With what?" "Interference with the vehicle, external involvement. We're building the case." They never said his name. They didn't have to. I already knew. And the truth was, I didn't need them to confirm it. I had seen enough. He didn't just find that place. He found it before Carter died. And Carter knew. That was enough for me. I stepped outside after the call, the morning air cool, the house stretching out in front of me in a way that felt completely different from the first day I arrived. Back then, it felt like a lie. Now, it felt like something solid, something earned. Helena joins me a moment later. "You look like you're thinking," she said. "I am." She followed my gaze toward the open field. "You're still waiting for answers." I shook my head slowly. I was. "And now?" I exhaled. "Now I'm done waiting." She studied me for a second. "That doesn't mean it's over." "No," I said. "It means I'm not standing still anymore." The house behind us was filled with sound, movement, life. Claire's voice carried from inside. "Breakfast is ready." Helena smiled. "That's new." We walked back in together. The kitchen was warm, crowded in the best way. Coffee, plates, voices overlapping in a way that used to feel overwhelming, and now felt like something steady. Claire looked up at me. "You're late." "I know," I said. She nodded like it didn't matter. Like I belonged there. And that was the part I didn't expect. This place was never supposed to be mine. Carter built it without me, protected it without me, carried it alone because he thought I couldn't. Maybe he was wrong, or maybe I just hadn't been ready yet. I poured a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, watching the room move around me. Safe. That word finally meant something real, not temporary, not fragile, something built. I used to think my life was something quiet, predictable, something that stayed inside the lines I was given. Now I understood something different. You don't always get the truth when you expect it. Sometimes it finds you when you're not ready. And what you do next is what matters. I could have walked away, sold the property, gone back to Portland, pretended none of this ever existed. But I didn't. He took something from me, and I built something he could never take back. I stepped outside later that evening, the sky fading into soft light, the house glowing behind me. For a moment, everything felt still, not empty, complete. I didn't know how the case would end. I didn't know if every piece of the truth would ever come out, but I knew this. He didn't win. Not here, not anymore. I rested my hands on the railing and let out a slow breath. 6 months ago, I walked into this place thinking it was the biggest lie of my life. Now, it felt like the only thing that felt real. So I'll ask you something. If you found out the person you trusted most had built a life you were never part of, would you walk away from it? Or would you take control of everything they tried to hide from you? Because some people survive the truth. Others become it. If you value stories where strength is quiet but unshakable, subscribe.